Jaya Gopinanda Dasodanandana Brajajanarandana Dasodanandana Brajajanarandana Yamunatira Mana Chari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Kridan vidate dvijago suranam. Chimaya karmanya vatara bedai. Mano natripyat yapisin vatamna. Shushloka moles charitam ritani. Kridan, manifesting pastimes. Vidate, he performs. Dvija, twice born. Go, cows. Suranam, of the demigods. Chimaya, welfare. Karmani, transcendental activities. Avatara, incarnations. Bedai, differently. Mana, mind. Na, never. Tripyati, satisfies. Api, in spite of. Srinvatam, continuously hearing. Na, our. Sushloka, auspicious. Mole, of the Lord. Charita, characteristics. Amritani, undying. Translation. You may narrate also about the auspicious characteristics of the Lord in his different incarnations for the welfare of the twice-born, the cows, and the demigods. Our minds are never satisfied completely, although we continuously hear of his transcendental activities. Purport. The Lord appears in this universe in different incarnations like Matsya, Kurma, Varaha, and Nrsimha, and he manifests his different transcendental activities for the welfare of the twice-born, the cows, and the demigods. The Lord is directly concerned with the twice-born or civilized men. A civilized man is one who has taken his birth twice. A living entity takes birth in this mundane world due to the union of male and female. A human being is born due to the union of the father and mother, but a civilized human being has another birth by contact with the spiritual master, who becomes the actual father. The father and mother of the material body are so only in one birth, and in the next birth the father and mother may be a different couple. But the bona fide spiritual master, as the representative of the Lord, is the eternal Father, because the spiritual master has the responsibility to lead the disciple to spiritual salvation or the ultimate goal of life. Therefore, a civilized man must be twice born, otherwise he is no more than the lower animals. The cow is the most important animal for developing the human body to perfection. The body can be maintained by any kind of foodstuff, but cow's milk is particularly essential for developing the finer tissues of the human brain so that one can understand the intricacies of transcendental knowledge. A civilized man is expected to live on foodstuffs comprising fruits, vegetables, grains, sugar, and milk. The bull helps in the agricultural process of producing grain, etc., and thus, in one sense, the bull is the father of humankind, whereas the cow is the mother, for she supplies milk to human society. A civilized man is therefore expected to give all protection to the bulls and cows. The demigods, or the living entities who live in the higher planets, are far superior to human beings. Since they have better arrangements for living conditions, they live far more luxuriously than human beings, yet they are all devotees of the Lord. The Lord incarnates in different forms, such as those of a fish, a tortoise, a hog, a combined lion and man, just to give protection to civilized man, the cow, and the demigods, who are directly responsible for the regulative life of progressive self-realization. The whole system of the material creation is planned so that the conditioned souls may have the opportunity for self-realization. One who takes advantage of such an arrangement is called a demigod or civilized man. The cow is meant to help maintain such a high standard of living. The Lord's pastimes for the protection of the twice-born civilized men, the cows and the demigods are all transcendental. A human being is inclined to hear good narrations and stories, and therefore there are so many books, magazines and newspapers on the market to satisfy the interests of the developed soul. But the pleasure in such literature, after it is read once, becomes stale, and people do not take any interest in reading such literature repeatedly. In fact, newspapers are read for less than an hour and then thrown in the dustbins as rubbish. The case is similar with all other mundane literatures, but the beauty of transcendental literatures like Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam is that they never become old. They have been read in the world by a civilized man for the last 5,000 years, and they have never become old. They are ever fresh to the learned scholars and devotees, and even by daily repetition of the verses of Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, there is no satiation for devotees like Vidura. Vidura might have heard the pastimes of the Lord many, many times before he met Maitreya, but still he wanted the same narrations to be repeated because he was never satiated by hearing them. That is the transcendental nature of the Lord's glorious pastimes. Kidan vidated vijago suranam chimaya karman yavatar bedai mano natripyat yapi sinvatam na shushlokamoles charitam ritani. You may narrate also about the auspicious characteristics of the Lord in his different incarnations. For the welfare of the twice-born, the cows and the demigods, our minds are never satisfied completely, although we continuously hear of his transcendental activities. So Vidura is continuing to ask these questions, and he's making these requests to Maitreya. This is up in Haridwar, I believe. Vidura had gone to be with Maitreya and hear from Maitreya. And now he's asking, and I believe the first shlokas of this chapter are the questions or statements and requests by Vidura to Maitreya. So here in this verse, Prabhupada gives a very long purport in that the twice-born, the cows, the demigods, and the auspicious characteristics, charitamritani, auspicious, sushloka mole, the shloka, sushloka. These are the verses, the narrations of the Lord are very auspicious. Auspicious means that which is good for everyone. Regardless, you know about that or you don't know about that, you don't know about Krishna, still just coming in contact with the Supreme Personality of Godhead is actually very, very auspicious. It's good for you in the long term, in the short term, in any term. So here, Vidura specifically mentions that the Lord comes in so many different incarnations and manifests so many different characteristics in these different incarnations. And at the end of the purport, Prabhupada does talk about mundane literatures as opposed to transcendental literatures. And we see how Krishna comes in so many different varieties of forms and performs amazing pastimes and very, very thrilling pastimes, and for different ages and for different purposes and so on. Where those who are a little advanced, especially the devotees and the demigods and so on, those who are twice born, they are very interested in these pastimes of Krishna. They take great pleasure. It is very blissful for them. And devotees have been hearing about these pastimes over and over and over again. And we're reading these verses over again, Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam. Many of us have been around more than 50 years, and we're still reading Bhagavad Gita shlokas, we're still reading Srimad Bhagavatam shlokas, and every day we're reading these things, and it is very relishable, and we find newer and newer understandings coming out. The Lord is so kind that He enlightens one within the heart about different understandings. Maybe you read that particular verse before, but this time you're reading, something new has come to your understanding in regard to this particular verse, or in regard to this pastime. There's always something new, something fresh, and even if it is the same, you've heard the same, still it is very pleasing and satisfying to hear it. And Prabhupada, opposes that to ordinary literature that you can read and newspapers and so on. He actually says here that you read it for a little while and it ends up in the dustbin, rubbish, throw it away. But we're not going to throw away Bhagavad Gita, we're not going to throw away Srimad Bhagavatam, especially those who are civilized. And here it is mentioned that all this arrangement for these things, that the Lord is very concerned with the cows, with the twice-born, with the demigods. Very concerned, and of course He's concerned with every living entity. And He is looking after the needs of all the living entities. But He gives special protection to these particular personalities, or the cow, the twice-born, and the demigods, because they're very important. They're very important for society. Very, very important. So although the Lord sees equally all living entities, still He distinguishes some, everyone's equal, but then there are those who are meant to get more attention, more priority, because by their position, they're able to influence so many others. They themselves will advance, the twice-born, the devas, the cows of benefit, but they're providing such a nice situation. And this arrangement they're given by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And there has to be cooperation, there has to be this understanding. There are verses in the 3rd chapter of the Gita, I believe. Devan bhavayatayadena te deva bhavayantava parasparam bhavyant sreya paramavapsyata. Cooperation between the men and the demigods. Sahajagya prajashishpa. This was all given right in the beginning. The yagyas, the way of life, how to live life in the world. This is mentioned by Krishna speaking to Arjuna in Bhagavad Gita. He sent forth all the different creations, all the different types of entities, and everything springs from Him. And also Krishna gave the way how to live in the world. How to live in the world, how to live relatively happily in the world by performing Jagya Praja. The original Praja is Krishna, so He gave the yagya. He gave the cows are here by Krishna's arrangement, all the living entities, and it's all under the arrangement of Krishna. So one has to, if one can try to understand that, how everything is actually under the arrangement of Krishna, and certain things are in certain ways to have a particular result. But of course these days, especially in Kali Yuga, people are ignorant of that. They have their own ideas of what arrangement there should be in the world. Mainly it's very self-centered, self-serving, what I want in life, and what my immediate needs are, what my family needs are. So, and one has a concept of that, and so they don't understand the higher arrangement. There are others who are more intellectual. They study the universe. They try to find out the origin of everything, and they try to make sense of why everything is arranged in a certain way. But because they're not actually devotees, even though they may be very intellectual, they can't understand on the higher level, the more subtle level of spirituality. On the higher level and the more subtle level of spirituality, one recognizes the position of Krishna. and how everything stems from Krishna. It not only stems, but it comes from Krishna with a purpose, as I said. So this position of understanding these things, the spirituality, is very much dependent on these personalities mentioned here. The cows, for example. Of course, we could have got Krishna Kirtan up here to give a nice class on the cows and the bulls. The benefit of the cows and the bulls you've all heard many times before, on the Go Puja and so on. Krishna Kirtan usually gives the class and gives a wonderful class on the benefits of the cow and the bull. But Prabhupada mentions here, of course, and we've read this quite a few times, that the cow and the products from the cow is, of course, he mentions here the cow is like the mother, she gives milk, and the bull is like the father by using the bullock to till the soil. We get the grain. So, they're providing. So, like a mother and father provides, gives guidance, provides for their children. So that is the duty and the obligation and the love of the mother and father. Now, Prabhupada also mentions in regard to twice born, we have our birth from our mother and father, but we've had previous mothers and fathers, and they were different to the mother and father that we have now. And in the next life, we'll have another mother and father. So we've had many mothers and fathers as far as our birth in the world. This is a point Prabhupada emphasized. We've had many, many. And who knows who our next mother and father may be, and whether our next mother and father will even be human mother and father. According to your activities, you're going to act in a certain way. You may get an animal birth, so your next mother and father may be a mother dog and father dog. That's your mother and father in your next life. It may be, they're communicating with you, woof, 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 woof. And that's your mother and father. And they provide for you and they do all those sorts of things that a mother and father will do. But who knows? That may be your mother and father in your next life. So we can't, there's no guarantee because of our activities, of our karma. So the mothers and fathers change. And of course, one has affection and love for their mother and father, but on the higher level, on the transcendental level, we understand that we've had many. But here Prabhupada makes the point in regard to this twice born, that someone who has gone through this system of culture and becomes twice born, means you take another birth, you take a birth, and your father is the spiritual master. The spiritual master is your father, who's your eternal father, because he's giving the guidance, he's giving you protection spiritually. And so that is eternal. He's instructing you about Krishna, who is eternal. He's giving you instruction on devotional service, which is eternal. He's relating to you more on the level of the soul, and you are eternal. So the whole situation is eternal. So your eternal father is Krishna. Of course, ultimately, is the guru. Ultimately, it is Krishna. He is, of course, the original guru. So the guru is like that. So going back to the cow provides, and here the relationship between taking milk, of course, milk products. Prabhupada gives, he says here, to eat certain types of food is for human beings is an arrangement of the Supreme Personality of God. And the arrangement of the Supreme Personality of God, it is there's cows and there's bulls and so on, and they're meant to, meant to provide welfare for civilized human beings. And they're meant to be given protection, and they provide so much. And so milk and milk products, the relation is made here that when milk is taken, then that develops finer brain tissues, finer tissues in the brain. And this is especially mentioned in the Ayurveda. If you drink milk, especially heated milk, and it's mentioned that especially at night time it's very healthy to drink milk at night time. And so that very much develops the finer tissue in the brain for understanding spiritual subject matter. Interestingly enough, I read a report some time ago, and I dug it up in regard, there was some research done, And this was done by researchers at the University of Maine in America. And they had 900 men and women ages 23 to 98. And they did a series of brain tests on them, and in regard to milk and drinking milk every day. So they found out that milk, of course, can give a much needed boost in different ways, much needed nutrients and so on and so forth. But also they found out that it positively impacted your brain and mental performance. This was a recent study. Researchers found that adults with higher intakes of milk and milk products scored significantly higher on memory and other brain function tests, more so than those who drank little to no milk. Milk drinkers were 5 times less likely to fail the test. They had all these tests that they put them through compared to non-milk drinkers. Of course, there's many tests that go on and so on and so forth, but this is one interesting one I picked up on. And so the tests were a whole bunch of brain tests, visual, spatial, verbal, working memory tests, and they tracked the consumption of milk with all the participants, 900, and all these different ages. And a series of 8 different measures of mental performance, and regardless of age and so on and so forth. And those who drank at least 1 glass of milk each day had a far greater advantage. So the benefits persisted even after controlling for other factors that can affect brain health, including cardiovascular health and other lifestyle and diet factors. In fact, milk drinkers tended to have healthier diets overall, but there was something about milk intake specifically that offered the brain health advantage, according to these researchers at Maine University. So I just picked up on the brain advantage and the finer tissues of the brain, even medically speaking and scientifically speaking, some research. Now, they say at the end, more research is needed, as they always usually do say like that. More research is needed, but there is a correlation between, drinking milk and brain function. And Prabhupada, of course, this is very much known in Ayurveda. Good milk consumption is good. Of course, you have to have a diet. Ayurveda will also tell you you have to try to eat according to your, your body type and your whole, whether you're a Kapha, Pitta, Vata, and, so, you'll have, if you go to an Ayurvedic doctor or if you go to Ayurvedic Acharya, it's probably better they have Ayurvedic Acharyas if you go there. And then you get, you go for a treatment and they'll see your body type, they'll analyse you and they'll give you certain things, a diet which it's good for your body. So they, sometimes not too much milk won't be, is better for your body than someone with another type of body. But generally speaking, milk is very good. And milk products, ghee, for example, very, very good. Of course, too much of everything, too much of anything may not be very good, but a nice balance. But milk, so the cow provides milk, and of course from milk, so many nice products, ghee. I seem to remember Prabhupada said that ghee is very good. Ghee internally, and what did he say? Oil externally. Didn't he say something like ghee internally, oil externally? Of course, so if we have nice, ghee is very healthy for you, but you have to have it in the right amount. So balanced, not too much of anything. Prabhupada was very concerned about the health. I remember one time when he came to Melbourne, he was giving a class or something, and who was it who was standing up there? And he stopped and said, was it Shredder, what was his name? Shredder Crit or something like that. Prabhupada stopped the class and he said, are they feeding you enough prasadam? What was that, Shredder Crit? You were there? Yeah, are they feeding you enough prasadam? He was worried that he looked very skinny. Of course, the devotees all knew that he was eating plenty of prasadam. he would, we were concerned that the milk sweets were disappearing every morning and no one was getting any of them. And later on, we tracked it back down to Cedar Creek. He'd get in there and he'd sneak it off and he'd lock it in his little locker in Brahmachari ashram and stash it all. And everyone was wondering who's walking off with the milk sweet. So, he would be observed having huge amounts of prasadam, but for some reason his body remained very skinny. So when Prabhupada saw it, he thought that they're feeding you enough prasadam. And another one question was also asked: is Prabhupada is eating too much? Is eating too much prasadam bad? And Prabhupada thought for a moment. He said, "Well, eating prasadam can never be bad, but eating too much may be not very good." Eating too much may not very good. A very wonderful answer. So prasadam is always good, but too much is not very good. So it has to be a balance, and so milk is very good. We're advocates of milk. I know some people are not advocates, they're vegans or whatever, but we're advocates of milk, and it's very nice, offered to Krishna. You can take milk prasadam, and the benefits there, so milk and the ghee and all the different products, the yogurt, everything like that. It's it's very healthy for the growth of the body. Milk is considered a whole food, so I'm sure Krishna Kirtan can give much more information of the benefits of the cows and the bulls and milk products. And so this is there, an arrangement of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, that the cows are there as an arrangement, and Prabhupada makes a point of it here. The arrangement is there so that the human society can live a nice, happy, healthy life, and especially drinking the milk and having the milk products, you develop the brain and the tissues for understanding spiritual life. And so it is there concomitant in with the arrangement by Krishna. Because you have to accept that this is Krishna's arrangement. Then that's very easily understood. And then Krishna's very concerned with the cows. He likes to give protection to the cows. Unfortunately, these days, people don't give protection. They kill so many animals, and they especially kill the cows and the bulls and the bullocks and so on. And so that is very sinful. And so also the twice-born, Krishna are very concerned that those who have taken that step of taking initiation from the spiritual master, now they've got an opportunity. There's not much of a window of an opportunity in the material world for spiritual advancement. There's not much of a window. You know what I mean by that? You come to human life, and in human life you can start to understand about spiritual life. So human life is not very long, especially in Kali Yuga. People don't live very long. And so then at the end of this life, you may go back down into the other species of life where it is so much more difficult to understand anything about spirituality or make spiritual advancement. But in the human form of life, we can. So an arrangement by Krishna, Sahaj Yagya Prajat, all these things, the Vedic lifestyle, the yagyas, the twice-born, the system, all these things originate from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So if we follow this system, and then he says, then he says that if this system is followed, there'll be nice grains, there'll be nice rains, there'll be nice grains. Now, the demigods are in charge of all these different things. Devan bhavayata, te deva bhavayantava. So when the system that is given by Krishna is followed very nicely, one performs the yajna. Of course, in the Kali Yuga, Prabhupada makes a point that especially is the Sankirtan. But one performs these things, then the demigods are pleased. And when the demigods are pleased, they provide all the necessities of life. The cows provide the necessities of life. The demigods provide the necessities. There'll be nice rains. There'll be nice grains. But we know they're so extreme of everything all over the world. It's not that we don't have to talk about that too much. Everyone sees it all the time, how difficult it is. But if one follows the system as given by Krishna, now because society has transgressed for so long, not only transgressed but engaged in very sinful activities, therefore there has to be so many suffering reactions because of the karma. has to be so many suffering reactions. So we're seeing this all over the world. But the idea, Krishna's idea, is that you follow this, you've come to the world, you're conditioned by the world, but if now he's given the system, you follow these things, take advantage, and Prabhupada actually uses this phrase, take advantage of, where does he say that? Here's a point. The cow is meant to help maintain a high standard of living for spirituality, and one should take advantage of all these different arrangements by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And as I said, the window is not very long, it's short, and so behooves us to take advantage of these things and go on progressive path back home, back to Godhead. So I'll just finish there, just to leave enough time for questions. I'll read this verse again. Kridan vidate dvijago suranam chemaya karmanyavatara bedai mano natipyatpi sinvatam na shushlokam oles charitam ritani. You may narrate also about the auspicious characteristics of the Lord in his different incarnations for the welfare of the twice-born, the cows and the demigods. Our minds are never satiated completely, although we continuously hear of his transcendental activities. So does anyone have any question or comment in regard to today's verse? Yes, please. Not working.
Hello.
Yeah.
Maharaj, with regards to the milk developing finer brain tissues, it seems like that's a strengthening of a material instrument that's needed to understand spiritual knowledge. But I thought spiritual knowledge or spiritual advancement, there was no material barriers. So how do we understand that?
Yes, that's a good question. That's correct. But both are correct. It's a how did you put it? The brain is a
it's a strengthening of a material instrument.
A material instrument, yes. That's true, and of course it is by the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead that one can understand spiritual life. But Krishna has made an arrangement. You've got a material body, so he's made. You've gone into the human form of life, which is Krishna's mercy, and you've got a human brain, which is also Krishna's mercy. So Krishna takes advantage of that human brain and that part of the human brain that is there with the finer tissues for understanding spiritual life. And I think I've told this story before. I always remember many years ago when there's some scientists in England who were researching the brain and they made a statement that we think that we have found the spot in the brain that motivates people to think about God, and they kind of put it in such a way that it's only a part of the brain. It's really there's no real being, but it's only this part of the brain, and actually they gave it a name. They called it the God spot of the brain that enables the brain to function like that. And so interestingly, I read this article a long time ago, and they asked one bishop in the Christian church what he thought of that statement by those scientists about the God spot. He said, well, I don't know about that, but if there's a God spot, then I say God put it there. So I thought that's a very good answer. That's true. God put it there. So, and then that particular part of the brain, so you can understand about him. So both is true. The instrument is there, the part of the brain with the finer tissues that is not there perhaps in the other species of life, that is there in the human. That's Krishna has, that the cows are provided, so then they drink the milk, and this finer part of the brain, so there's that part that you use nicely with the help of the milk. So Krishna has put it there, and he helps also from within, and he helps from without by the spiritual master. So Krishna in so many ways helps us. So we can't say it's just one way or the other way. Krishna can use unlimited ways to help us progress on the spiritual path. So a very good question. Any other question? Yes, at the back there.
So,
Not a question, just a comment. Thank you for this place. I studied Ayurvedic medicine, and my teacher used to say that the cow mimics the universe with its digestion, its 4 stomachs and stuff. It's the same as the centre of the universe and how the universe transforms energy, and that's why the milk is the purest and the cow shit is the best for gardens.
Manure.
And manure, because it's an imitation of the universe, how it transforms naturally.
Well, yeah, the cow is a very special animal. And, we do on the Govardhan Puja, all the different areas of the cow are representative parts of the devas and so on and so forth. So the cow is very special, and and Krishna is very fond of the cows. So we have nice cows and bull and bullocks here in New Govardhan. So very, very special. Yeah, every part of the cow. The manure, the urine, and the milk, and you can make so many things from the milk. So yeah. So therefore, the proper emphasise, and he emphasised it so much. Right, if you read right through the Bhagavatam, there's so much emphasis on that. So maybe one final question. Yes, Ram Prashad.
Maharaj, you were saying how, we're very lucky to obtain a human birth, but it seems like somewhere along the line we have to have accrued that degree of faith. Otherwise we're stuck even with a human birth. Like I've been listening to scientists arguing about, whether there's intelligence built into, the universe, all that. And it just seems like with the same degree of scientific understanding, and I'll argue this or that, but without that, somewhere we've got to have accrued some faith. Otherwise, we can't make advantage. We can't take the advantage of this body. Can you comment?
Right, yeah. No, well, I mean, in the previous, our previous lives, we've come in contact as somehow or other through pious activities. Perhaps we've come in contact with devotional service in some way. It may have been even not as a human being, maybe as an animal, just like there are so many animals here, and they hear the chanting, they get some prasadam. So in some way or other, but in some contact may be there, and also maybe, mercy. Maybe you didn't get any contact, but by the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, you get the contact. And then due to that contact, the faith, that faith or that actual eternal position of your connection with Krishna is awakened. And more and more, even if it's just a spark, it is awakened more. So yes, so there has to be a certain degree of it also. I guess that's more what you were saying. For one, because someone can be swayed in so many different ways by this one's presenting, the other one's presenting, and so many different opinions. But then those who stick steadfastly to spirituality, to devotional service, why do they do that? Why aren't they swayed? Is that more what you're saying, right? Yeah, kind of. Yeah, so yes, because we've had a sufficient amount of contact previously, and now that we've become more steady and more, we have that more maturity and more steadfastness in our understanding, and that's Krishna's mercy, that we can understand things on a higher level, on a more subtle level, as far as advancement in Krishna consciousness. So it's due to the mercy of the devotee, mercy of the Supreme Personality of God, this life, previous lives, so on and so forth, that we're like that. Because others who are intelligent on the material level, they're not like that. No matter how you present it to them, they can't accept it or won't accept it. So they haven't had that touch. But nevertheless, this is the Sankirtan movement, and we're trying to touch everyone with the mission of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So gradually, they'll also come to the same position as we're in now. Hare Krishna. So I think we have to finish there. Jai, all glory to Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Shri Radha Govardhana ki jai. Gaur Premanandi, Hari Hari.